I'm Graham Breen. I look after a couple of things at Innoactive, partnerships and business development. So anybody who's interested in working with us, and we'll come to that later, I'm the person to contact. And I'd also like just to quickly introduce you to Eric, who's also going to be presenting as well. Eric, do you want to maybe say a quick hello?
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, Graham. So thanks to you all. Eric, I'm the architect of Interhaptics, which is a software solution to enable haptics and hand interaction, both in extended reality and digital application. I have a background in the field of mostly research, come with the PhD in haptics, and then evolved into industry experiences, mostly managing a lot of haptics technology for different use cases that allowed us to learn and develop a useful technologies for enabling user to use haptics in a day-to-day basis.
Fantastic. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Today, it's two companies talking about a collaboration and a really exciting topic. So it's a combination of Innoactive and Interhaptics. As I mentioned, for those who are already here, I'm Graham Breen from Innoactive. My background in the world of VR is actually from HTC. I've worked there for many years, starting the Vibe team in Europe and across all the various parts of the business. And I've joined Innoactive looking after partnerships and business development. And Eric can reintroduce himself later. He's going to talk in the second part of the presentation. But the great thing is here, this is actually a great example of a partnership where it's taking the technologies from both companies, bringing them together and using them for something that is going to be really beneficial. So let me move onwards. So just a really quick introduction to who we are. Innoactive, for those who don't know us, we are a small company founded in 2013. Based out of Germany, although has got a couple of employees dotted around the place, including myself. Our complete mission is to scale VR training. So everything we do is all about helping enterprises scale VR training. We have a couple of tools I'm going to come to in a minute where we use in order to do that. We've got a couple of our reference customers there and some logos highlighted on the side of the screen. But yeah, everything we do, and it's like, I'm going to repeat it a final time because we kind of have to drill it into our own heads. It's all about, will this help to scale VR training, yes or no? And today, the talk about haptics is a good example of something that will help to scale VR training. For those who don't know much about VR training, I should maybe just say a couple of words because this is useful. VR training really has huge benefits when done properly. These are some numbers we had from a study actually with Unity and Volkswagen, for example. So a 50% reduction in training times, 33% in costs, and a massively high recommendation rate. Anybody who has spent time around VR training understands the learning by doing, and especially coming to the fore in complex situations, dangerous situations, or very high cost situations. Performing training in VR is always beneficial in those situations. So yeah. Now, Innoactive, as I mentioned, we have a couple of products. We've got, one's called the Creator, the other's called the Portal. I'll come to the Portal in a moment. But the Creator is all about how can you build VR training content and how can you scale that? How can you do it easily, quickly, and have people doing it who aren't necessarily hardcore developers as well, people who have some technical skill but aren't maybe coders. The Portal is all about, once you've got that content, how do you distribute it? How do you get it to your customers securely and to the right people at the right place at the right time? So yeah, the Creator, it's a visual tool that plugs into Unity. So if anybody's working in Unity, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are, it's a visual plugin into Unity where you can easily create step-by-step process-driven VR training. Once you've set up a template and brought in the various assets and the various objects, the images and so on, or the 3D objects, I should say, you can then very quickly and easily drag and drop them into position, create process links and steps between them. And the idea behind it is, if you can't code, you can still create training processes. I'm not a coder myself, but I'm able to create training processes using the creator. But if you want to, you can actually extend what's in the creator. So you can extend it by code to develop more templates, more scenarios, more detail, but you can always have that, very visual overlay of the process flow of your training. So it allows you to standardize the look and the feel of your training, and it also allows companies to scale, because once you've got your assets into the tool, it's very quick and easy to create a piece of training, and the whole workflow is massively sped up. So as I mentioned, it's got a visual editor, and we see a couple of things here where it's branching. So just because it's process training doesn't mean that you have to do step A followed by B, C, D, E, F. Actually, a lot of training, like real life, you can take multiple route paths to the same goal. So actually we see branching in there as well. So you've got that flexibility. One of the really cool things in there is actually, I'm saying really cool, but it's a very subtle thing, but very important. On the right hand side, the validation system. So there's little warning triangles. So if you've got steps in there without the relevant information, or without the relevant object, or without the relevant interaction with it, then it'll give you a little warning, and you can very quickly drag and drop something in and fix it. Now, VR training in the context of today with haptics is a big topic, and it's a big for a reason. Actually, we've always used since the sort of the latest coming of VR about 5-6 years ago, we've always used controllers in order to interact with the world. But actually, they are in many situations, they're a means to an end. We're not born using controllers, we're born using hands. We're born interacting with the world. And sorry, I'm a very handy talker here. But we're born interacting with the world with our hands. And so that's where we're going with our partnership here with Interhaptics. It's bringing the hands into training. So not just controllers and button interaction, but integrating the tools from Interhaptics into the Innoactive creator here. So we'll have more details coming in a minute, but that's why I'm explaining the creator in a bit of detail, because the Interhaptics framework is going to be integrated, or it is already integrated into the creator, so you can build hand elements in there. So maybe just a couple of extra things to mention. So here we just see a scene from the creator. The key thing is, if there are elements in the creator that don't fulfill your needs, it's very easy to add further logic in there, to add further features, and then just pass it over to somebody who's not a coder, and they can then add them into the training very quickly and easily. We are continually trying to grow what's in the creator. I mean, we're calling it premium features here, and what we mean with that are extra elements that are consistently coming in. One of them is actually something called desktop mode. Something we've seen a lot in the past year with COVID especially, is people haven't been able to train maybe in physical locations where there's a lot of VR setups, or companies are trying to train a large workforce but have a limited number of VR headsets. And so some people, the lucky ones, will get to train in VR, but some people actually are going to have to train in a 2D world as well. So we're able then, with the creator, to build a piece of training that can be done both on a desktop mode, but also in headset. So in a perfect world, yes, you get to do it in headset, but failing that, there's also a desktop way of doing it. And this is, I don't think this is running as a video here, but this is just an example of the desktop mode working. So it's using the mouse input rather than hand tracking. But I'm gonna, and you can see that actually here, there's a mouse option on the screen there. So that's creator in short. Like I say, visual editing. There is an open source there's an open source version of this available. We have the premium features that we actively sell with our partners, but there is an open source version based on top of Unity. It supports universally VR devices. We really are trying to be device agnostic, support as many as we possibly can. When we deliver the creator, there is a basic template in there with interactions and objects in there just to get people started, so you can create training from scratch. And there's also a demo training module that people can download just so they can understand how it works. But it is easily customizable, and it's easy to create segmentation and branches from there. The other tool we have within Innoactive, though, is once you've got that training, that's great, but how do you get it to your customer? So the other part of that is called the portal, and it's all about secure content deployment. So easy access, very much like a Netflix, if you like, of VR training, controlling who has the access rights, and giving it the look and feel of the customers. Because, for example, the example we're seeing on the screen here, this is Linda. This is how their portal look, because it's their product. It's something they use for their customers, so we can brand it for them. And it's a very simplistic product in many ways, but that's because it works very smoothly. Something we really prioritize in here, and I'm not going to talk through all of these points, but something that's very important is the whole secure element of this. So, for example, many companies we work with actually have large parts of their workforce offline, so we can do on-premise hosting or even actually cloud hosting. So not a topic for today's webinar, but we're going to come there in future. But 5G, cloud streaming, and how you can use the portal for that. And there's going to be more about that on our website shortly too. So that was Innoactive in brief. And that's kind of important, the training tool, because it plugs into the main part of the session today, which are the haptic elements that I'm going to pass over to Eric for in a second. Just to say a couple of things before I do. Firstly, if you've got any questions, we're going to be having quite a Q&A at the end, so please put them in the chat. Natalia is going to be gathering them and bringing them to us at the end. So yeah, any questions, please do so. And secondly, if you haven't completed the poll yet, please take a second and do that already. I can see there's already 46 people have already done it, so thank you to you guys. But if you haven't, yeah, it's always interesting to see what people have to say. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Eric now, who's going to take you through haptics and interactions. Okay, thanks a lot, Graham, for the intro. I apologize in between. I will ask Graham to change the slides, so we'll be like this. Cool, that's fine. So I'm Eric. I'm just introduced myself a little bit before. I have a background in haptics, both research and industry, using different technologies. And today we are pushing the product, which is Interhaptics, which our slogan is "Make haptics and interaction made easy." So who we are in Interhaptics? You can change slide. At Interhaptics, fundamentally, is a company which develops and is specialized in haptics software for different digital platforms. So our mission is to create an ecosystem for haptics. So haptics today, it's really verticalized by different technologies. That means that it's harder for, let's say, haptics for your iPhone or your exoskeleton to share the same software background. This is the ambition that we have, is to create a wonderful overlay that allows every haptics device to be interchangeable, work, and allow the creation of a content creator community as developers that can exploit the advantages of haptics within digital content. And within these missions, within XR, we collaborate with Innoactive, the specific topic of XR training, which is really receptive about haptics. It's not difficult to understand. You use your hands. So it's quite natural that the user expects to have a feedback and interact with their own hands. So you can change the slide. So
within this topic, I would like to frame a little bit to what is, not what is haptics, but what is haptics for us in this case. So it's a really broad topic. It within different field, people understand it in different way. But for us, we want to take the broadest term of haptics, which is being able to touch and grasp. So really being able to use your hands to interact with digital content. So within this large definition, we consider haptics all the technologies that allows to manipulate digital content as well as feeling digital interaction in return. So we can change slide. In the term of XR, and this is declined, especially for hands, in all of a certain really large number of interfaces that are created, exist, and are implemented also in many, many devices with different degrees of fidelity and performances. We consider all of them in the inclusion of haptics in a different way. You see here the Oculus Quest 2 with hand tracking, as there is the Vario with the Ultra Leap or the HoloLens 2. All three have hand tracking capabilities, but which enters into the domain of haptics, which I can manipulate with my hands, which then evolve with different performances and also, of course, different cost and usability issues towards a hand tracking solution, glove tracking solution like the SensorX, or you see there probably the SensiGlove Nova or the Manus VR for, with my Prime Haptics or the Bebop Sensor or the Haptics solution. So there are many, many more of this solution being born. Frankly, every month we probably see a new one that is coming up. But all of them fulfill the same need of the user, which is being able to manipulate the digital content, different degrees of fidelity and quality. So we can change slide. So all of this is haptics. So the big question is always, why should I consider haptics and hand tracking in my VR training? Why should I invest the time, resources, and money into exploring the possibility to bring it in? One and clear advantage is that content that is hand tracking and on haptic enabled is much, much more accessible. So the barrier to entry of a trainee that wants to use this content is much, much lower. Just use your hands and go. And that's why, I mean, HoloLens 2 is hand tracking first. A lot of business application of Oculus Quest are hand tracking first because it's much, much easier just with your hand, click a button. Second reason is that we already know how to create human machine interfaces for hands. It's how we do it in reality. So there is a lot of work of economics already done. So it's much, much easier to use the content if the content, of course, is well designed. The point of haptics is that haptics can bring a learning reinforcement when you are actually doing the training. So it can give the feedback that this helps you to do your training in a more effective way. So there are today research activities that wants to quantify this. So early indication says that this is effective. How much it is still under research. This is a feeling that comes also from user that much prefer use haptics device compared to not use haptics device. So there is a more sense of engagement of the user during the training, which has been shown that participates to the training effectiveness. Third point is that we have more natural and realistic interaction. While doing the training itself, there can be a procedural training, which can help you to leverage muscle memory and having a more immersed experience, which again, it contributes to effectiveness of a training. And the last point is, of course, Graham said it before, we are talking about learning by doing, and we use our hands to do it. So it's just much more natural. We can pass to the next slide. So what does actually Interhaptics do in this framework? What we do, we have fundamentally 2 products and 1 engine. So the products are simple to understand. The first one is and the roles of the products are focused for developers. So the Interaction Builder and the Haptic Composer are developers and creator-focused products, which are today integrated into the Innoactive Creator. which allows to reduce dramatically the time that is required for a creator to create an interaction or an interaction plus haptic feedback and include it in the XR scenario. We arrive up to 95% of reduced time for interactions which are levers, sliders, buttons, and such a thing. So everything is already pre-made, and it's pre-made and optimized for hand tracking. So you don't have to think about the technology, just need to think about what you would like your training scenario to be. So basically we abstract everything that is complicated about hand tracking because you have no button on the hand. So it becomes much more complicated. And what does the engine does? The engine allows this content that is created to be deployed on basically every hand tracking and potentially every hand tracking device today in commerce or that will arrive in the future. So this allows, I come back to Graham, to the scalability problem. So this will allow to scale the content created with Interhaptics through not being restricted to one specific device. We can change the slide. So let's go a little bit in deeper. Let's first talk about the interaction builder. The interaction builder is, as we discussed, specifically built for hand tracking, and we iterated the user experience of hand tracking while using the interaction builder. It's a no-code plugin. That means that non-developer are able to use this tool. That's why we are working with Innoactive, because there is a no-code system. Ours is a no-code system. That means that we are targeting the same kind of audience. We allow to have a faster developer, of course, and the average number of clicks to create an interaction can be a lever, can be a button, can be a slider. It's around 3 to 5 clicks. So this is extremely easy. We have a lot of tutorials that allows you to learn to do that. So, and we have a quite large community that is using today the interaction builder. And of course, as we mentioned before, is cross-platform. Next slide. This is for interaction, so about how I'm interacting with the 3D content. For the haptics feedback part, which is what the content tells, gives the feedback to the user, we created a complete design solution, completely graphical, which is the Haptic Composer, which allows the creator of the content to design practically and see in preview and feel in preview the feeling that his own content would like to have. So let's take an example of an exoskeleton. We have an exoskeleton. We would like, this is a virtual cup. We would like to have the feeling of grabbing this virtual cup. So in the Haptic Composer, we can just select the stiffness side and design how much we wanted this blocking to be. And that will allow to quickly iterate the creators and having a compelling and meaningful experiences during the training. And of course, this Haptic Composer can be, the asset created by the Haptic Composer can be assigned into Unity within the interaction builder to a specific interaction then to be executed by the system. I didn't mention before, both of these solutions are compatible and integrated already with Unity. So that means that we are absolutely compatible with the Innoactive creator right now. We can change slide. So we talk about interoperability, scalability, and this is the key point that you want to bring forward today, is that there is a huge number of XR devices of different marks and different brands and different way to work around there. And there are also specific haptics and interaction devices, such as the Sensor Glove or the Sensorix, which are great devices, which have a more capability as a performance level, for example, from the optical hand tracking. So Interhaptics supports all of these devices, all the commercial one between XR controller and optical hand tracking, and we are building meaningful relationship with hardware providers such as Sensor Glove or Sensorix to include them to Interhaptics to allow them to be cross-compatible with the content. What does this really mean? It means that when you create content with Interhaptics, you can execute this content or through Oculus Quest controller or through Microsoft HoloLens 2 hand tracking or with Oculus Quest hand tracking. And it's exactly the same, content and exactly the same code. So as you see here, we can change slide. what we are achieving through this is absolutely eliminating hardware limitation when discussing about hand interaction and haptics. So your content can be used and deployed on standard solution as well as more advanced solution, which have a nice effect of completely de-risking the investment into understanding if haptics is for you. Why? Because if you create it with Interhaptics, fundamentally what you created can be then later reused with standard solutions. So you're actually just investing to create meaningful content that you can use within your operations and just testing if haptics bring value to your solution, to your operations. So at this level, Interhaptics really allow you to experiment by implementing these advanced features and understand if your trainee and users are accepting and find value in these innovations, but you are not taking economical risk by doing so besides taking the hardware, because your content can then be easily reused with current devices that your organization already have. The third point is that we really have a large family of interactions fundamentally built for VR training. We are active in VR training since like 4 or 5 years. And this larger family of interaction is already pre-implemented into the interaction builder and can be easily customized. So it's frankly really easy to create levers, sliders, or buttons, and all of them are logically made to be able to be implemented into the Innoactive creator. So we are basically populating the building blocks that the Innoactive creator have with interactions, and these interactions are completely customizable in few clicks to generate the effect that you, trained designer, would like your trainee to have. And of course, it's extremely rapid creating these interactions. So all in all, we are giving a huge boost to the productivity and a huge de-risk to the implementation of hand immersion, hand interaction, and haptics content within the organization. You can change slide. And I would like just to share, this is at all not an academical segmentation, but is what from the work that he did till now, we understand that the user would like also to understand which haptics technology makes sense for the use case that they would like to do. And as we discussed, there are several different haptics and hand tracking technology, right? So there is optical hand tracking, like the one that is today in Oculus Quest or UltraRip. There are more advanced and more precise tracking gloves like the Sensorix that we collaborate with. And there are also tracking glove plus haptics feedback and force feedback like the Sensor glove that again, we collaborate with. We tried to summarize, of course, this is not a complete nor it's fundamentally correct. This is a bit our vision. The different use cases that the different interfaces can help to resolve. So when we talk about optical hand tracking, it means that Oculus Quest hand tracking, for example, we are talking mostly about HMI training. So like clicking virtual buttons and doing this such of operation and soft skill training. It's a bit more complicated really to implement them, or at least we need to take care about the procedural training there, be sure that we meet the expectation, because for example, if we reach behind our head, we lose the tracking of the hands. So that can generate user frustration. When we use, for example, tracking gloves that are more specialized and focalized for greater tracking capabilities, there we enter really in the realm of the procedural training. And specifically with tracking gloves, what is wonderful is that we can mix real object and digital content together. For example, we could use a fire extinguisher with the same gloves and implement that in virtual reality with the real object and having the real feeling of the object plus the digital content on top of it. And this is some of the use cases this tracking glove allows to do. And then when we increase, again, the capability of the interfaces, we really arrive in something which is much more simulative level. We don't really want simulation because that generates a lot of user frustration, but by increasing the haptic capability of the device, what we can allow ourselves to implement as designer into the training content is much more precise finger operation and hand operation, and use haptics for this training reinforcement. So as you see, these interfaces, each one of them have its own value and its own quality, and it can answer to the needs of a different kind of use cases. This, of course, is preliminary. It's not it's still in ongoing activities, but this is for us a bit of generic indication of what to do. Of course, procedural training can be done with optical hand tracking. We just need to really take care a little bit of what we are going to do. For example, having procedural training with two hands that overlaps themselves, it's a bit complicated because the hands disappear. So we just need, as design creators, to be sure that we are addressing the problem with the right tools. We can change a slide. So as a closure here in Interhaptics, and we are wonderful, we are great that it's great that we are collaborating with Innoactive here. We are really looking forward to create a great haptics ecosystem. What does this mean? It means that haptic devices should be a tool for an end. Should not be the reason by which there is an experimentation. And to allow to do that, we want to empower this ability, this haptics device, to be interconnectable, and we need to be partners with haptic device manufacturers to be able to allow this to thrive. So do not hesitate to get in contact. And of course, as well, if you want haptics in your application, we are here. So I will give you back the stage, Graham, for the next step of this workshop. And thanks a lot for this opportunity.
Great, thank you very much. That's an old poll. So before we come to an old poll, I'll stay on this slide a second, just because I have been asking you, I'm sorry for hassling everyone, but thank you for completing the poll, guys. So just as a very quick reference, actually, it's always good to know who you're surrounded by. The people who've joined today, actually, so 19% were looking at haptics for VR training, 9% hand tracking for VR training, and 72% are interested in both, which is actually great to see. You're currently working on a VR application, 60% yes, 40% no. I should probably mention, actually, at this point that, especially for that 40% who aren't, the creator tool I was talking about earlier, it's available on a month's free trial. It has the integration with Interhaptics, and that's innoactive.io. So anyone can go there and download it and use it. So I would encourage all of you who are interested to do that. And yeah, hopefully more of you can be working on a VR application. So who is familiar with haptics? So we've actually got 65% yes and 35% no. Tell me more. So it's actually quite a good balance, but it sounds like we've got a pretty advanced audience here. And finally, do you want to apply hand tracking or haptics to your VR application? Massively in favor of yes. We're at 85% yes and 15% no. So some really strong feedback from the poll there. The poll is still open, so if anyone does want to go in who hasn't done it, you are always more than welcome. So this is actually an old poll I thought could also be interesting to share with you about that we've done previously about how did people want to use haptics for their VR training. And I'm actually quite pleased to see that the audience today is a far more engaged haptic one. So yeah, so this is the previous poll. So about the highest scoring comment in the question of, are you currently considering combining VR training tools with hand tracking, is the highest scoring one was actually they're only using it for VR training, or they're looking at providers as a second one. or the early days of such tools. So I'm hoping, and we're seeing a bit of this, Eric, as well, that the market is slowly progressing here as the hardware is coming online and as the software frameworks to make it easier are coming online, that actually it's an evolution between, we put this one in there as a kind of just a bit of interest to compare the old one from about, I think we took this in the second half of last year. So in about November, December. So that time period versus now. So it's always good to see that. I'm going to leave this slide up now for the next session and or for the next period, because we're keen to actually take on board some of your questions. But before we do that, I want to highlight, we've both been talking quite a lot here about partnerships. Both Innoactive and Interhaptics, we are startup companies looking dynamically to work in partnership with others by pairing with experts, and we've done that in this various case with each other. So on the one side, you've got experts of scaling training, and the other experts of integrating haptic solutions. We come up with something stronger. If anyone is keen to get on board and partner with either of us, here are our contact details. So please do just get in touch. So at this point, I'm gonna now see, are there any questions we've got from the audience? And
we have plenty of questions. Graham, we can start with you. There was one question: what does the integration change in the creator?
It doesn't. I mean, the creator as such is standard. All the difference is you see more options. You've got the ability then there to set some of the parameters for hand rather than controller, for example, for hand tracking. So it just gives you an extra array of options. It's not something that makes it actually more complex. It's something that you can use as and when is necessary. And I think that, and this is something Eric and I were discussing earlier as well, is that for certain situations, a really basic functionality of a controller is just fine. For some, actually, you do want even to go as far as a haptic glove with feedback when you're having to work on something very delicate and learn a specific skill. So you have the options to scale between one extreme to the other there.
Okay, thank you. Then we had a question on the first part from Steve to Graham also. You mentioned assets. Are these AutoCAD drawings or can these be 2D, 3D graphics?
Usually for VR training, it would be some kind of, whether that's an OBE or an FBX, but some kind of 3D object. Something that you can then pick up, like I'm doing here with my phone. You can pick up, you can manipulate, you can put somewhere. So sorry, when I'm using the term assets, I mean that. And we find, especially when we work with bigger customers, that these exist anyway. They usually have a kind of a so-called digital twin of their real setup. So whether that's their factories, their machines, the products they're selling, it all exists as some kind of 3D CAD object. Now, there are, for those who haven't maybe got them ready for VR, there are kind of optimization pipelines you can use. For example, we work with, we recommend a company called Pixies, for example, who are based out of Paris, who are very good at optimizing from massive CAD data files that you get sometimes if you're designing, say, a car, to something that you could get, that you can process with a VR headset. So, but yeah, it's 3D objects.
Okay, thank you. Now, Eric, there's a question also from Steve. Do you need to have haptic gloves to create the program / training?
No, you can create your content without having the interface that you are creating it for. Of course, you would need probably a couple of rounds of testings, but it's not necessary to have the material to be able to create for it if you have the right version of Interhaptics.
Okay, thank you. And from Joanna, also for Eric, how does the Haptics Composers API allow for the integration with different haptic devices, say gloves of different types?
So we are usually running this activity in partnership with the haptic device manufacturer, so or the people that would like to integrate this device. So if you have a device that you would like it to be integrated, just contact us. We can work it out together. The reason by which we prefer to do it together is that the haptics is it's known to be hard, let's say, and it's easy to not obtain the objective that you have. So we prefer to do it together to be sure that the final result is wonderful and will be wonderful. Then at the first time, just to empower user to do that. And so if you want to have something that is not yet supported, included, just contact us. And this is one of the call to action that we would really like to push here. So we are running a lot of these activities today. Some of them are communicated, a lot of them are not for different reasons, but this is our daily bread. So just we do that in life.
Something I should probably say at this point, actually, we didn't show it in the presentation, but there's a video that Eric and the team have put together showing exactly how this works. We didn't run it in the presentation because we've all been to too many Zoom presentations where videos are stunted and don't run so well. But there's about a 3-4 minute video just showing on a very simple level that we can happily share. Feel free. I don't know if there's a sign up, Natalia, but you can just get in touch with us either way, and we can share that video with you. So yeah.
Yeah, in that video we show how to create for controllers, Leap Motion, Oculus and tracking, Sense Glove, Sensorix, and not HoloLens, but it would be the same with HoloLens. And you see how easy it is to do this operation. So Natalia just share a form on the chat. Be sure to fill out the form and we will be able to email you the link of the demo. So you will be able to really see it by yourself. It's like 3 minutes, and in 3 minutes you see all the process.
Okay.
And it's hot off the press because it's been made today. So thanks, Eric and team.
Right, we have a couple of more questions. So this is probably to both of you, and it's a combined question. How can I have haptics in my VR application, and which genre of VR application is most suited to have haptics?
So how can you have haptics? I take the leadership for the first question. How can you have haptics in your application? So it's you can, okay, first answer is you can use Interhaptics, but that's probably too much marketing here. So you can work with us and we provide you everything pre-made, which is just need to click boxes and it works. However, usually hardware manufacturer provide SDKs that allows you to code the haptics specifically for a specific interface. So there are 2 ways, or you obtain the SDK of the device that you would like it to be to create haptics for. The VR controllers have haptics actuators, so you can code for that, and you create an application using this SDK, and you execute this application. The other way around, you use Interhaptics that we support automatically different SDKs, and the content that you create with Interhaptics will be haptic enabled. So that means that you will be able to create haptics for these devices. And regarding the applications, which that needs haptics, I mean, answer is everything needs haptics. The question is how much and in which way.
Yeah.
And I leave Graham comment a little bit more.
It's a bit of a how long is a piece of string question. It's a good question, actually. I think you can take the 2, I think, and Eric, you're welcome to disagree with this. Actually, this is just me thinking a bit on the hoof, but the 2 extremes really stand out for me. So the hand tracking on the one side, when you want something super simplistic, you can throw a headset on and go and not have to educate someone to do controllers, where you can just do picking up. At the other extreme of though is where you really want to train something super specific. I've just actually early this afternoon got off a phone call where we were talking about dials within an aeroplane, and that is actually talking about twisting knobs to certain degrees and so on. And super specific movements is a great thing if you're looking at, say, the glove end of the market as well, because you really are then getting the feedback and you're training the motor skills. And I'm heading into Eric's research background here. Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you're training basic motor skills by performing those kind of functions.
So one thing that I would like to share a little bit, that is, and just to avoid the confusion into the users, is that haptics should not be seen today as a simulation tool, because we are not there, because the technology is not there. However, as you also shared before in the different levels, level 0, level 1, level 2 slides, maybe we can go back to that slide. And in that level, haptics has to be seen as a reinforcement of operations. Okay, haptics is a complement for user that enhances dramatically user immersion, user experience, and is a learning reinforcement. You should not expect from haptics to have exactly the same sensation that you have in reality, because that is not the case today, because the technology is not there. But it can generate a ton of value if used smartly by enhancing and engaging more the user through the use of this technology. So concerning back to the use case that you were mentioning, this is not a closed list. This is really something that it's just a proposition, and different levels of haptics levels, let's say, we can call it like this, we call it like this, and with different kind of use cases that are enabled. So really what was mentioned, Graham, is like soft skill training, HMI training, where you, or even procedural training, where you don't want the user to have to teach him, just put heads and go, and that's great. If you will follow, fill up the form that is online. In the demo, we show procedural training with hand tracking. It works well. It just depends how much you want your procedural training to be fast or interactive or dependent or on different conditions. If you want it to be much more similar to reality, let's say you need to pick something up on the upright, and you, in the meantime, you have to do another operation, for example. In that case, it's much more suitable to use tracking gloves of exoskeleton solutions, because they are more robust. They have more robust tracking systems that allows to obtain the results of having a stable interaction and satisfactory experience, where the objective is not the experience itself, but is training the person in front of you that is using the content. So it's important that the right technology is chosen while selecting the use case. But what we provide is that you don't need to relearn a new SDK. You don't need to rebuild your application if you want to implement these technologies. And let's say you want to do it optical and tracking, it doesn't work. You don't need to rebuild it from scratch. You just need to get one of the devices that is supported with Interhaptics and plug it into your content. It will work. So that's a lot of less investment and a lot of less risk for the content that you are creating.
I think possibly worth also mentioning here the speed of technological development.
Yeah.
We've just come off CES last week, and there weren't that many amazing XR announcements, but one of them that really stood out was actually Sense Glove, who launched their latest glove. So it's really good to see how that's moving. And I know from my past, when we had the very sort of first look at hand tracking on the Vive, and we were using kind of a wide angle, low res camera, and you're seeing a hand here, but your hand's actually there, and it's giving you a false depth reading. To where we've actually reached now, if you look at, say, some of the native solutions in Oculus Quest, some of the other solutions out there as well, they are already awesome, and they're only getting better. There's a lot of development and research going into them, so we're already at a good point. But I think it's one of the parts actually of the industry and the tools that will enable the training use case that's moving at a quicker pace than some of the others.
Yeah, I mean,
so
our job actually is to to meet this technological evolution allows the creators to, for them, nothing changes. Really, nothing changes. And that means this content is the same. You just need, if it comes out like a wonderful exoskeleton that is implemented in Interhaptics, you just download the DLL and you say, okay, compile for this, and it will work. Really.
And that's the key thing. It's exactly, it's about future-proofing the content you're making here. The tech's getting better, but actually you build something today, it's a very quick recompile for the next piece of hardware that does well.
It's absolutely future-proofing your haptics content, and is allowing you to completely de-risk what you're doing if the objective is not met, and being able to scale if your objective is met. Because if you want your content, for example, you want a 15 exoskeleton, 15 tracking gloves. Yes, but maybe you are 100 headsets. You don't have to have all the headsets with all the gloves. You can have a small subset, but that content can be used also somewhere else. As you were discussing, Graham, you have the desktop and you have the VR, and some people are using it on desktop, some people use it on VR, and here is some people use it on VR in controller, some people use it with haptics exoskeletons, because maybe they need it more. So, and this is exactly about giving the choice to the user of which technology fits better a specific use case, but maybe even a specific population that you want to train.
Great. We have 5 more questions that are really interesting.
Okay, we'll answer the next one quickly. Sorry, no, that's a good question.
There's a series of questions that regarding the gloves. From Tori, the first question: which haptic gloves do you find work best with Interhaptics? Which ones would you recommend?
So I would be completely straight and transparent here. We don't recommend haptic gloves. We are a platform provider, so we just can say which gloves work with Interhaptics, which don't. But we will introduce you to glove manufacturer for you to evaluate which is the best solution. What we will tell is that if a glove is certified with Interhaptics, we tested it and we validated that it works. That is for sure. But we will make the role of unity. We will not tell to someone a specific headset is better than the other, because we have to be neutral in front of haptics device manufacturer. So we can tell if it's Interhaptics certified, you are sure that we tested it and it works. That's for sure. But I will never tell a user which is the best haptics device for him. I will put him in contact gracefully with a hardware manufacturer and allow him to make his own choice.
I guess there's possibly an element there of use case defines the need rather than which is best.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I agree, Graham.
It scales a bit like on the slide here.
Great. And here's a question that is regarding Oculus, but I think it's an interesting question regarding all hardware types. It concerns the safety factor of sterilization, cleaning of the units for others to use. So is there any recommendation or suggestions on that topic?
Yeah, Graham, you can go.
Yeah, very hot topic. Funnily enough, it's a hot topic for 12 months, but this has actually been a hot topic since forever. I go way back to 2015. I ran a lot of the first Vive demos, and we were obsessed with it then, because you don't want somebody's sweat, makeup, germs on your face. So the key things, though, are, especially in the current environment, you need to do what you can to kill bacteria. There are products out there. Possibly the one that comes to mind most is CleanBox, so UV light solution that will kill, I think it's 99.9% of bacteria, but only if I think it gets a direct line of light. So that's one thing. Wipe things down thoroughly, then wipe it down again, and with antiseptic wipes and antibacterial wipes, I should say, as well. But yeah, it's funny. It's like I say, it's really come to the attention in the COVID world, but this is something that should just be a basic anyway, because when we're looking at scaling VR and VR training, it should always be a pleasant experience for the next user of the headset, not just the one using it. So
yeah, I mean,
Eric, you can add to that.
Yeah, there is a simple way when you use haptic devices right now, is that if for VR headset you use a small mask. For haptics devices you can use disposable gloves. Better would be tissue, because if it's plastic it is wet inside, it's not comfortable for the user. But you can easily provide disposable gloves for the trainee to allow them to safely use the haptics device without disinfect it every time.
And
so,
as Eric said there, this looks a bit like a kind of a bandit mask that a lot of the go with a lot of the headsets. You put it on as a piece of fabric.
Yeah, exactly. That is the solution for masks for haptics devices. If it is a concern, you can use, of course, clean box, which is great. If that is not a suitable solution for any reason, you can use for haptics. You can easily use disposable gloves, and they work really well for avoiding the problems. And of course, if you use optical hand tracking like Oculus Quest, you don't need anything, because you are not touching anything, it's air. So it's really dependent on the specific use cases and that you would like to address with the specific technology.
We have one question from Johan. You said to Eric specifically, you said it's accessible for everyone. And what if people are not able to touch with their hands, for example, mobility disability? Is there an opportunity to touch with diverse body parts or skin?
Yeah, so this is a bit more advanced features, but everything is absolutely can be implemented by the user. You can apply any feedback, haptic feedback, to any body part that you would like within specific interactions. Let's say you do something like this, you don't want to feel it here, you want to feel it in your chest. That's absolutely possible. So we can link this interaction to this feedback here. Okay, and that's actually quite easy within the framework. We just need to change the number of this body part to the number of this body part, that it will magically work. So yes, short answer is yes. Longer answer is that just get in contact, share a little bit better what you would like to do, and we'll put you in the condition to do it.
Great. Then we have a question from Simon. Do you provide plan to provide a haptic template library, if it makes sense, for example, for arrows, buttons, dials, different materials, etc.? Or do you have to build everything from scratch?
So yes, the short answer is yes. We are planning to do so. We will be putting haptic packages on Unity Asset Store in the near future. So it's good that you are asking us, because we were waiting for market feedback. But yes, we were planning to share so where we will have haptic enabled interactions that you can implement it easily and start to iterate upon. And one of the big focus for us in the future is to provide well-made examples where user can take inspiration for and implement it. So yeah, we will do provide that. We have it internally right now. If there is a specific necessities, we can get in contact and we can put you in the condition to succeed. But in general, our ambition is to have, let's say, a package of 10 interaction with a specific haptic feeling, multiple packages on the Unity Asset Store, when you can just click and download it.
Mm-hmm. And I have one last question noted from Yashna. Have you experimented Interhaptics plugin for medical training? If so, how was the outcome?
So we have users that use Interhaptics for medical rehabilitation. So they are building content using hand tracking, thanks to Interhaptics for having rehabilitation content. For medical training, we don't have yet a direct experience. With Interhaptics, we have direct experience with integrated products that we built, thanks to Interhaptics technologies. So if you want to get a little bit deeper, don't hesitate to get in contact, and we can maybe set up a call and understand better what are your needs. Because again, I come back what Graham says, it is mostly, even the medical field, the kind of training that you would like to achieve that defines what is the best interface. it's not the medical field per se that defines a different way to do stuff. So it would be maybe better that we discuss a little bit about the use case that you would like to achieve. And so if you're thinking about surgical simulation, I can tell you we are not the right people to talk to. If there is a specific company that build a medical simulator for surgery that have a different price point, as you can imagine, because the level of haptics there is much, much higher than what can be delivered today from this kind of haptics devices. So what is important is to understand the use case that you would like to address. And then from there, it derives what is the best framework to achieve this use case.
If you want to know more on that, I mean, as Eric said, I've also come across multiple companies doing both in terms of rehab and medical, and using either be it hand tracking and motor skills in rehab or hardcore haptic solutions for medical. So yeah, just get in touch afterwards. We can point you at some people who are really experts at that.
Great. I think we have still a bit time for 2 questions. One from Sarah, one from Joanna. Sarah asks, how does your tool adapt to people of very different size, like with very petite or very big hands and very different heights? I have colleagues of both spectrums, and any tool acquisition can be an issue.
So this is a good question. So regarding the height, that is managed by VR systems. So VR systems manages everything, like headset manages what is height or not. So regarding hand sizes, you can, I think the only interface that today provides the dimension of the hand is the Oculus Quest hand tracking, but you are not allowed to use it in third-party products. So the first answer is that we don't really take into consideration hand sizes, but the software that we built for recognizing grasps and recognizing contact manages the different spectrum of hand sizes and allows all of them to be able to have a satisfactory experience. Second point is, if you are in virtual reality and you are projecting yourself to use your hand, if the sizing of the hand that you have in front of you is not much different than yours, you would not see the difference. You would be able to interact with the content in any case. And the last point I would like to share is that, as usual, it is what is the objective? Is the objective the training and the satisfactory experiences during the training, or the objective is the simulation? Because if the objective is the first, the importance is that the software respect the usability framework that you pose yourself, that is, users are able to use it and are able to get trained. If, however, you would like to simulate the usage of abstraction tools like ours, like, for example, the Innoactive Creator, probably is not the good way to go. You would like to build a verticalized solution for use case, because what you want is as much precision as possible. So again, the question is, what is the objective that you pose yourself with your content that will help you to understand what is the technologies and stack that will help you to address the problem. So if you want to have a scale, what you cannot have is a super personalized experience. Graham, if you want to comment on this.
Not much else to say to that. I think that's an awesome answer. Yeah, the hand part fully. And yeah, as you mentioned, the VR one, it's all down to you set a floor level. VR understands where you are and it factors it into your height. That only gets weird if you start to see avatars and there's a disconnect and you look down at a body that's not there, but that's a whole different topic. But yeah, VR adapts to your height. It doesn't sort of set you at a generic height. It fully adapts to your height.
I think in the call there is one of the probably world expert into these questions, which is Massimiliano De Luca, that is listening. So if you're interested to know more, I just get in contact. If he agrees, I can put you in contact with him. He's a professor at Birmingham University, and he's super skilled in virtual reality interactions and haptics. So he can give you a lot of meaningful answers on that.
Right. And we have one last question from Joanna. Can your system provide haptics for multiple users doing training?
Yes. The simple answer is yes. The haptics. So how our haptics works is that we manage the human body as a haptic display. So it's like you have a virtual haptics display on all of your body, and every user that have a headset have a haptic display on of his bodies, and all of these things can interact with each other, can execute the same content, and can have haptics independently applied to themselves.
These were all of the questions from the chat. If there are any other questions that you might have later on, you can contact us and fill out the form, then you will receive more information, including the demo video. That was all on my part.
Fantastic, thank you. I think that probably just leaves us to say thanks to everyone who's attended, and also stayed for the questions. Some really good questions there, actually. And I think there's probably one or two that you could probably dig a bit deeper on, and we can follow up and at least point you in the right direction on afterwards as well. So I've just thrown up our contact details in here. Probably worth saying this is reasonably early in our partnership. We've been working together now for about 2 or 3 months. So I'm looking forward to we're going to be looking at doing another one of these later on in the year, and actually bringing some sort of results and some successes that comes from this as well. So yeah, hope to see everybody then. And Eric, maybe I'll leave the final sign off to you.
Yeah, so I'm really happy to be here with you in Innoactive. You are one of the leader of VR training, and I'm happy to be sharing this stage with you. And I'm actually positively surprised about the number of questions and amount of interest there is in the topic. So I see that it is it's not probably completely well understood, but it's a well-researched topic. People project themselves into these directions. So really, what I would like to stress is it's not any more rocket science. Let's say it's a bit more accessible haptics than it was maybe a few years ago. So something that you might imagine probably can be done. So do not put blocks and barriers to yourself, and get in contact if you want to test and implement. We are here for you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for joining, everybody. And this will be going up, by the way. If there's any things that you we skip through quickly or whatever, this will be going up as a video as well. So we'll post that and share that soon. But yes, thank you for joining, and goodbye, everyone.
Bye bye.